Friends, we've been brainwashed. Yes, that's right, brainwashed. I know that's quite a statement. What in the world do I mean by brainwashed? I mean that our thinking and perceptions have been influenced and manipulated to produce certain viewpoints, certain attitudes, certain perspectives. So many of the ideas and values that we thought were our own have actually been planted in us, or at least introduced to us. These ideas we were exposed to in turn got us to think, speak, and behave in certain ways. Now, I know that sounds far-fetched, and if it's true, who did all that? But first, what kind of ideas and attitudes am I talking about? Okay, for instance, how about the notion that experts and officials are more qualified than you are to make the pivotal decisions of your life? Or how about the idea that science and technology will solve all of our fundamental problems? What about the common belief that Western medicine, also known as modern medicine, is the last word in our health? And on the flip side of that idea, that alternative forms of medicine are pure quackery and mumbo-jumbo. Have you thought about this one? Celebrities are far wiser than average people about what is good and bad, or who is cool and who is not. Here's yet another. You can believe without question whatever official news sites tell you. Here's an even deeper thought. There is probably no God, and even if there is, he, she, it, whatever, is not interested or involved in our lives or our world. But understanding the realities of our world is absolutely fundamental for life at its fullest. So, it's essential to make sure of what's real. Now, back to where these ideas came from, their source. Obviously, certain people have told us these things throughout our lives. Our parents, our teachers, our friends, so-called experts, people in official positions, etc. Were they lying? Were they themselves duped into just accepting what's commonly thought? And I'm sure that the people who told us these types of things had a variety of motivations, innocent and some perhaps not so innocent. But now I'm just going to say it. Ultimately, Satan is behind certain false and damaging perspectives of reality. Satan's viewpoint has had a shaping influence on our minds, our thinking, and our perceptions of our world. Yes, I know that to many people, that's a huge stretch. Satan sounds so old-fashioned, so simplistic, so out of touch, so Bible. The Bible describes Satan as a deceiver, a seducer, a manipulator. Not only that, but he's shown to be completely evil and utterly destructive of all things that are good and wholesome. Sometimes Satan's evil is overt, and maybe like me, you've personally experienced the terror of pure evil. Thank God it's only been a very few times in my life. At other times, he's covert, promising good things, even initially delivering some of them, but ultimately bringing only death, loss, and destruction. A few years ago, this type of talk might have sounded crazy and extreme, but not now. Satanism is open and on the rise. Look at some of the highly publicized events of our time, halftime shows and gala gatherings. For example, the rise of Satanism and the occult has coincided with the degeneration of our society and our world. Seems obvious to me, and only those who are committed to seeing the world as they always have seen it will fail to grasp this. Because it's all about perception. Here's a quick example from my own life. Lately, I've had a problem with losing things, glasses, keys, wallet, etc. We live in a community that has banks of mailboxes. And recently my wife and I were at our bank of mailboxes, and I used my mailbox key on my keyring. When I took the mail and handed it to my wife, I must have forgotten to lock the box and take the keyring. And later, when I realized that my keys were missing, I guessed what I had done. So I borrowed my wife's keys and drove back to the mailboxes, but there was no sign of my keyring. Then, thinking maybe I'd lost them someplace else, I searched everywhere. I searched my house trying to find them, and there was no luck. And finally, before bed that night, I decided I might as well pray and ask God to have mercy. The next morning, I continued to double-check the car and the familiar places in the house. I called a couple of neighbors that I'd visited that day before. Nothing. Well, then my wife suggested that I go back to the mailboxes one more time. And it was that time of the morning that the mail carrier normally comes and puts the mail in the boxes. I thought, okay, maybe she'll know something. I was convinced that it was useless, but I decided to drive by and talk to the mail lady anyway. When I arrived, the mail carrier wasn't there. There was just one car. It was driven by a big, sort of intimidating guy with a full, bushy beard. As he was driving away, I guess he saw me sort of looking around, so he stopped and rolled down his window, and I thought, uh-oh, maybe he's going to ask me why I'm snooping around here. To my surprise, he said, "You wouldn't by any chance be missing some keys, would you?" "Yes, as a matter of fact," I replied. Well, he wasn't convinced. "Describe them." So I did, and he got out of the car. "Which is your mailbox?" Well, I showed him. He said that he had found the keys in the back of a different mailbox that was open, along with someone else's mail. He asked me if I was the person whose name was on that mail, and when I said no, he looked at me with suspicion. But he walked over to the mailbox that I pointed out as mine, and he tried the key, and the box opened. He asked me my name, and I guess because the key opened my box and had mail addressed to me in it, he was satisfied, so he handed me the keys and wished me a good day. After shaking his hand and thanking him, we both drove away. Now there are two explanations as to how I got my keys back. Number one, pure coincidence. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and met the right person. Or, number two, God heard my prayer and directed my wife to suggest that I go back to the mailboxes so that I arrived at the split second just before the guy who found my keys drove away. Chance or God? Which is correct? I guess it depends on which view of reality you're committed to. A world of randomness or a world created by God in which He intervenes under certain circumstances. So what is real? What's the world like really? There are many perceptions of reality, some more compelling than others, some more dominant than others. But just because a view seems right or is believed by more people, that doesn't necessarily make it true. The popular film The Matrix makes this very point. Red pill or blue pill, your choice. It's a matter of faith. For those who are still clinging to the view of reality portrayed in our institutions, media, and wider society, let me respectfully ask you this. How is the accepted perspective on reality really working out for us? Are we headed into a better world because of it? Is a view of the world without God bringing us together, solving our problems? Or should we maybe rethink? Maybe there is a God who is wise and loving and powerful. Maybe Jesus really is God come to save us from ourselves. Maybe if we embrace Him and His promises for life and abundance, things could fall into place in our lives. Maybe the Bible is not outdated or hateful, but a treasure of wisdom and insight into reality just waiting to be discovered. It's certainly something to think about. This is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries.